Broadcasting from the studio at the Levan Center of Innovation at Nova Southeastern University, welcome to Levan Center Live, featuring rockstar entrepreneurs, innovators, and those that foster the Florida business ecosystem.
Hi, and welcome back to Levan Center Live. Welcome back, subscribers and first-time listeners. Remember to like, share, and subscribe if you like the content today. I'm Jim Ryan. Of course, I'm joined by my friend at the Levan Center of Innovation, Interim Director Kelly Shanley. And Kelly, it's great to be with you again.
Good to be with you, pal.
Well, we've got a great podcast today. I'm truly excited about this one. Of course, we talk to successful executives, entrepreneurs, and those that help foster the Florida business ecosystem. Today, we have a wonderful entrepreneur, former Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, built a billion-dollar business, ABB Optical, and thank you so much, Angel Alvarez, for taking the time, my friend, to be on the podcast today.
My pleasure, Jim.
So we're going to have a great podcast. We're going to talk a lot of subject matter because you're weaved into the community in many ways, building your businesses here in South Florida. You've also been involved in a lot of volunteer community philanthropy. Here, family is weaved into your DNA, and I've gotten that from you since we've met earlier on, helping support entrepreneurship and mentorship here. So we're going to talk about all of those things, but we're going to wind the clock back a bit when you and I had darker hair back in the day, because you have an incredible entrepreneur story, the American dream, immigrating with you and your family from Cuba. So let's wind that clock back a bit. Let's hear the Angel Alvarez story about how you and your family migrated here to the United States. And then Kelly and I will walk through your background together.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for having me. My story is one, my father was an entrepreneurial individual. He suffered some tremendous losing everything in Cuba during the revolution, and then coming here and working in the transportation business. He started the supplier. We were fortunate enough that the supplier of the trucks was a White Motor Company up in Pennsylvania. And my father's idea was to take old trucks and sell them into Latin America and supply the parts afterwards. And Mack Motor Company, Mack Trucks, was a big supplier. And the idea was to take used trucks off the U.S. market, make the business work around the parts, supplying the parts, and White Motor Company and Mack Trucks sell more new trucks, which is something that they wanted. If you've been here around Miami International Airport, you see a lot of these truck lots now around the airport now that it's fairly common. And he saved money for almost 17, 18 years because transportation in the United States was regulated. And a medallion, like you would hear that a cab needs a medallion to work. All of transportation needed medallions, from transporting, this is before UPS and FedEx. To transport 12 pounds from Miami to Tampa was a regulated rate of X dollars. He saved money 17 years to roughly $40,000 back then, which was the cost of an average home in Miami. Was off to the races, primarily shipping Cuban products to places like Elizabeth, New Jersey, and Tampa, and the like, where there was pockets of Cubans that had relocated there. And Homestead, we were raising all different types of Cuban vegetables there. And that was his kind of main business. Shortly after that, was able to leverage and buy the second medallion. And then Jimmy Carter came and deregulated transportation. And with one signature, his medallions were worthless overnight.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, but that whole evolution, that whole experience, the difficulty my family went through was really a learning experience for me. This is a man that lost everything twice
Right.
in reality. Because the concept was the second the transportation was deregulated, the business was worth just the assets of the business. And then competition was anybody that had a vehicle. Not to mention, fast forward, you get UPS and FedEx to come into that space. So that environment, I think, really, I would say, influenced my mentality and probably increased my risk tolerance more than others, I think. Because at the end of the day, what I realized, and I compare myself to other friends that had more stable family lives, is that they were they had a tendency not to risk things. They played it a lot safer than I did. I think in the back of my mind, I felt like I've been poor, and I wasn't afraid of it because you experience it. If you've never been, it's a pretty frightful place to go. So that's my competitive advantage.
And rather not stay there.
Yeah, no, you don't want to stay there. But it allows you to, put all the chips on the table.
What a culture shock, though. It must have been, immigrating from Cuba, the family, going into Pennsylvania, and then, Caribbean culture, and then you're in the blue-collar, heart of America, industrial state. And then what brought you down to South Florida?
So we lasted 1 year there. And the individuals that were my family business in Cuba, my father's business that he bought from his grandfather, we were important clients. And I think they assumed, as my father tells me the story, they assumed that the revolution in Cuba was going to be short-lived and within 12 or 18 months. So let's give this really good customer a job. He'll be loyal to us, and he'll buy only from us versus, other suppliers. When that did not happen is when my father's idea was, they can consign product to him and he'd try to sell them in Latin America. And we moved to South Beach.
A little more familiar territory.
Yeah, well, there's a lot.
Yeah, right.
At the time, there weren't that many Cubans. You were talking in 1960 and 61 still. So there were a significant amount of Cubans. But South Beach, we went to South Beach because the rent was very low, right? It was it was really run down, retirement, average age 80 years old. I wish we would have had the vision to look out at the beach and say, this is the most beautiful beach in the world here. But we didn't have the money to do it anyway. But the point being is that brought us down here, of which, he went on and did that, plus other jobs, to try to save up to buy this first medallion. So,
I'm interested in how you decided that those experiences that your father had and your family had increased your risk tolerance. It feels like it could have done exactly the opposite. Why do you think you fell on the side of...
So you've been talking to my brother.
Is that it? That's what I was going to ask.
My brother is risk adverse.
Yeah.
And I would say the rest of my family pretty much is.
Okay.
But I felt like, you think it's normal, maybe.
Right.
And, people ask me that. My brother and I have talked about this at length, right? Same environment, same experience. He's an attorney, a corporate attorney, retired, but a corporate attorney, worked at White & Case for a number of years. And he was, I called him the deal breaker, because whatever I was negotiating.
He was an attorney.
Yeah, right. And I really leveraged on that, too, because we didn't have two pennies to get, to pay for any legal fees, and I had my brother who worked for White & Case, which we couldn't afford, So, but his mentality is certainly, and that's why he's such a good attorney, and he helped me. My advice to people starting businesses: make sure your attorney loves you like a brother. I mean, that's what I tell them, because it was critically important, particularly in the beginning.
So I want to migrate forward here as you talk about your own migration into, and I'm a car guy, and we were kind of talking earlier about this, and you had some early starts valeting cars. And I always thought that would be, if I could make $1 billion valeting cars, as a car guy, that would have been a great job,
Right.
a great story. So, kind of talk about those early days. You rolled up your sleeves and said, I'm in Miami. I see an opportunity here. Maybe I could cobble together, a business here. So, kind of talk about that, and then how you then move from that entrepreneurial experience into your ventures into eyewear and ultimately ABB Optical.
So that's quite a leap.
It is, and there's a few steps in between.
Yeah. So I would tell you, and people go, you're an entrepreneurial individual, and I was just trying to eat. I was hungry. My car needed repairs. I wanted to go out on a date, and I had no money. So that's probably the catalyst for doing all these things. But the valet car. We were in college, and these friends of ours that were running a valet stand for a fairly popular restaurant at the time. We're going to go snow skiing, and I remember going, "You're going to go snow skiing? Where are you getting the money to fly to Vail and do all these?" Which was like ridiculous amount of money at the time. And they left, and we took over. And I remember making $102 cash.
Big money back in the day.
Yeah.
The first night, and I looked at my friends that were looking at each other, friends I grew up with that were now at the University of Miami together, and we're taking marketing classes and business classes. And I said, we're going to do this. Long story short, those guys graduated, and we took over that restaurant. But we put together a campaign and picked up 4 restaurants and ran that as a small business. With its issues around stolen cars. This was during the gas crisis. And these guys would pull up and say, have a half a tank. If I come out and there's less than half a tank, I'm going to shoot you.
No pressure.
Car accidents, people not showing up, the whole. And you get baptized in management in a hurry. And the good part about valet, not only that it was cash at the time, but you ran like 5 miles.
Yeah, right.
The byproduct of being a car parker, you ran a lot of miles, which was kind of nice. And my first date with my wife, she thought I was a drug dealer because I broke out this
Right.
wad of ones. Ones. And I spared her all the quarters, So, but. That just got me into prior to that, I had done the paper route. I had worked in produce section at both Grand Union and Winn-Dixie. I got a great job covering for another friend of mine, working in a layout for a newspaper. The Greyhound Racing Record is what it was called. And that was a big break. That was my first exposure. I was 16 years old, walking into an office. And I actually had a kind of a white-collar job in air conditioning, which is unusual,
Yeah.
and doing a layout for the results of the Greyhound Racing business. And I was very proficient at it. I got proficient at it, and I liked it because I could do it at any time. But I had a series of probably a dozen jobs prior to parking cars. At the University of Miami, I took a course I have a degree in finance, and part of the finance curriculum was you could get real estate licenses, which I did, and started flipping houses. One night, junior, senior year, this guy by the name of Tom Vu, who would do these commercials, infomercials.
Sure. I remember that, yeah. He had the American Dream story he would share.
Well, I'm sitting there, and and he's on a yacht, and he has these 2 beautiful women flanking him.
That's right.
And he goes, "Do you think these women are here because I'm good looking?" No, it's because I have a lot of money. And I'm listening, but then he goes, "You too, with no money down." And I said, "Okay, wait, no money down. I think I can. I got to pay attention to it." And it actually, at that time, you could assume mortgages, specifically FHA and VA, unqualified. So you just have to look for a house that the asking price and the mortgage was tight enough where you could, I had a license, so I could deduct a couple points as a realtor, and then put the difference on my credit card, and we bought 3 houses I still own with a friend of mine. Yeah, and I bought them back then just to the concept back then I was going to own 100 homes, which I wish I would have done, but my fate took me in another direction.
Well, I think you did okay going in another direction. Let's talk. Getting to ABB, you had it as sort of unique merger and acquisition. Not necessarily unique, but that was part of your strategy. Is to, so you were in sales because you were a sales guy, right? In that business. What attracted you to go into the optical business?
So I graduated as a finance individual, and I didn't get any exposure to professional sales at all while at college. And my perception, even after college, I wasn't really never exposed to salespeople. Even though fathers of friends of mine were insurance people and real estate, I just didn't connect it as sales per se. If you'd have asked me when I was 18, 19, I thought car sales guy, or a vacuum sales guy, which I distinctly remember coming to my house one time. That was my perception. I just didn't have that exposure, even though you're selling all the time, right? And I was doing spreadsheets I graduate, which I got out of the University of Miami, and all these side hustles that I was doing, I was making more money than starting at a apprenticeship job or entry level job at banks, Southeast Bank and the banks that were around at the time. And I'm thinking, I make twice that now. So why am I going to? So I really got a little bit confused. End up doing because out of just guilt, probably working at Florida Power and Light as an analyst in the financial group. And I'm thinking, this is not.
You mean you're just thinking you should have a job like that? Or
I felt like I had to grow up or
Yeah,
something,
right,
because I was just doing side hustles,
Yes.
Flipping houses, doing this layout at the paper. I was teaching martial arts at the time called Taekwondo.
I think the question is, what weren't you doing?
right.
No, but I was searching.
Yeah.
I think looking back at it, I was searching for what I really wanted to do. And a friend of mine pulls up to my apartment in a brand new car, which was a company car, which was news to me. And he just got off a golf course, and he was an engineer, and he just made roughly $2,000, which is a horrific amount of money. And he just did it while playing golf. And but that wasn't enough for me. I was asking him what he was doing, how it works, and his boss was in Atlanta. I said, "Wait, now you have my interest. Your boss is in Atlanta, so you're fundamentally at that level of professional sales, you're running your own business. You get paid for what you produce. You don't work, and you're not successful. You get fired or you go out of business. It's very similar. I think that helped me tremendously. So I decided and I did a little research. I wanted to be a pharmaceutical sales rep because, of course, they had a tie on. They looked pretty professional. Medical field, really professional, not. So that started this whole thing, and I was turned down by everybody. Lilly and Fisher Scientific, because I was a finance guy and no sales experience. And finally, this guy took a shot on me. His name is Alan Garrett, Vision Service Plan, which is a vision insurance company, visual insurance. And you can, the board was made up of optometrists. Fast forward, one of those optometrists became a mentor of mine. And he told me there's a startup company that you may want to apply to. It was Ciba Geigy, which was at the time a Fortune 50 company. And they were looking for contact lens sales reps. They were coming from, it's a Swiss company, coming into the U.S. to do the startup. And, it's a lot easier to sell than this. And I thought to myself, well, they're a big pharmaceutical company. I think that'll get me closer to what I want to do. So I took a job. I interviewed. I got to tell you, back to the martial arts a second. I took this interview with the regional manager for SIBA Vision, and I was the number 8 or 9 of the day. I remember going into the, it was a Marriott.
As an applicant? As
an applicant for the interview. And he was toast. It was 4 or 5 o'clock. He had seen 7, 8 people. The interview, would say, is not going well. Just not going well. And he goes, what else do you do other than work? And I got into, I'm leaving here to teach some class. And for whatever reason, it was something he always wanted to do.
Huh.
And that just changed the entire environment, I remember going back to Master Choi, who was my teacher, and saying, I got this job because of Taekwondo, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that just changed so now I consider myself, about starting ABB as an industry guy, vision insurance, worked for SIBA Vision for 5.5 years, and there's tentacles and reasons. And then that business was being transformed by a very disruptive introduction by Johnson & Johnson, which was disposable contact lenses. That in my head, I knew the doctors, I knew their practices, I knew the space, I knew how they did business. This was it was a paradigm shift on how they were doing business. And wholesale distribution was definitely, and logistics in general was going to be a big part of it. It was going to go from a pair of lenses on average every 14 months to 52 pairs a year, and they just weren't set up for that type of traffic, and we wanted to obviously be that back end of that, and I just felt strongly that was an opportunity.
I find it interesting as you tell your story because obviously a lot of our listeners and a lot of people we work with here are obviously early stage entrepreneurs, trying different things not working out, and as you talked about all the various things you were doing, you said you were searching. And I think sometimes people point at entrepreneurs at that stage while they're searching and say they're lost. And I think people listening to your story and describing it as searching provides a little intention behind that period where it looks like, you really aren't guided towards anything specifically, but you're just searching. You're trying to find that thing, and it seemed to carry up all the way through to where you just got to. The entrepreneurial mindset kind of never left you through all of that. Can you talk a little bit about your take on the entrepreneurial mindset? Like, what does it take to be an entrepreneur?
So, that's really insightful because I deal with a lot of young entrepreneurs. That's what I'm dedicating myself to these days. And they have to overcome their own, they just possibly just graduated, and the cultural perception of, oh, you're going to go get a job now, right? And you got to get out of the house, and you've got to do this, and you got to do that. And that's tremendous pressure. I think that's probably that friction, and it can be driven by the parents, mostly. And the parents not wanting to support the children anymore and everything else. It is the first thing you have to overcome. What I tell, first of all, I tell all these students and young entrepreneurs, if they haven't done profiling of their own selves, to start there.
Right.
Yeah, just personality profiles, if it's a DISC profile or
Myers-Briggs,
just to kind of open the discussion of what you're good at and what you're not good at. My brother and my father was very clear, would not be a good entrepreneurial individual. He was smart, same environment, everything else, but just was not comfortable making the jump. I don't see it as risky and taking the decision. That would be heroic. I just don't see the risk, which is it's just a different mindset, right? So finding out about yourself first, because the worst thing, and I see it all the time, individuals starting businesses or individuals running businesses, and it's killing them because the personality doesn't deal with uncertainty very well.
Sure.
You've got to be okay with that uncertainty. And I see it all the time, and it gridlocks them from making decisions. But what I would tell you is that is an investment in. I know a lot of students that look at, well, I'll go to law school, or I'm not sure what to do. I'm going to go get my MBA. I'm not sure what to do. I'm going to go get a law degree. I'm saying if you were to take that time, a year or 2 years to get an MBA or 3 years at a law school, and really be super intentional on creating something that you are passionate about, that you could really enjoy, that your personality lends itself to, that you think you would be good at, that the people outside would say, if I think that, wow, that's a great idea, Kelly.
Right.
You're born to do that.
Yeah.
If you land there and you spend that time just reflecting and being intentional about what you want to do, it's really important.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most people like myself, I didn't wake up saying one day I wanted to be a contact lens salesperson. I kind of built the company around what I liked of a cultural and how I like to lead, which was a gift. But that's different than if I were to start it all over again today. I would probably do something around like I'm doing today around, probably consulting or saving the ocean or something, which I'm working with 4 oceans. It's a passion. I do a lot of boating. That's why I have all this issues.
It gets you eventually.
Nothing's for free.
Well, I want to talk about the opportunities and the strategy here because you've got great humility. You're very humble and modest about your success. But building ABB Optical, $1 billion in sales, and then obviously exiting in that capacity as the CEO. You mentioned about the opportunity that you saw firsthand when working in the disposable contact lens space, and that was obviously a huge door opener. You had some great vision there when you saw that opportunity. And then I want to go back to the M&A strategy, though, because that's what really helped propel ABB Optical, and you and your brother coming together and seeing an opportunity here for leverage to scale this business. And I think that's an area where entrepreneurs often struggle. How do I grow the business? Am I going out and getting venture funding? Am I going out, am I bootstrapping and just getting some natural organic success and referrals through that growth? You went in a couple of different directions, but your main focus seemingly was the M&A strategy. Can you talk about that?
So first, and I'm very big on having entrepreneurs really nail down the model before scaling. I see it, a big mistake is they're trying to scale when what the concept or the product or the business is not nailed down. So we really nailed down our fundamental business, and that was the model, if you will, the franchise, that when we were looking at acquisitions, we did, you could do a comparison and decide, how, because the acquisitions always had excellent people we were picking up, different ways of doing things, product expansion. But I will tell you what really helped me, and I was a member, and I am still a member of Vistage for 30 years, and the modeling that we did was based out of understanding that the optical space on a trajectory basis was somewhat similar to dental and veterinarian, and pharmaceutical to a lesser extent. And there's the early on, an independent pharmacist was a pharmacist, didn't necessarily know how to manage the retail side of the front end of the business. That's very similar to an optometrist, right? That was doing the eye exams, but he didn't know necessarily how to optimize the frame and sunglass, the front end of the store, which is the retail space. Dentists, lesser so, but that same professional kind of sales call that you have to, in mentality. So once I realized, and I learned it from others, that there's these other businesses and they had gone through similar trajectories that where we were at from a wholesale distribution standpoint. I use that to model the future of my company. So, and what was very clear that they all did, they all had an acquisition strategy, but it was a critical mass situation. And as much as I love Florida and South Florida, which I love, I'll never leave, and from a logistics standpoint, it's at a disadvantage as from a wholesale distribution standpoint, delivering from the rest of the world. And the modeling was very clear. You had to have multiple locations throughout the country. And that's what got me. It was the modeling from these other industries that I totally connected with, stole every idea I could, and knowing that, hey, we might be 5 years away from being here, and we're late on this idea. We should have been doing this 2 years ago, and this is how it's going to look like in 10, 15 years from now. So I decided, as opposed to to do that, right, to be the platform to roll up the industry, because that was certainly an obvious thing that was going to happen. And it was happening, it had happened. The pharma business, there's 3 distributors that are 80% of the distribution business. In dental, there's more, but the top 4 are 80%. So it's a big consolidation play to get leverage and efficiency from scale and size. So we were off to the races after that happened. The way I did it was I put together 5 target locations. We were non-competing at the time. It was the business at the time was very regional. And we put together a group, an association fundamentally, that we shared ideas, best practices, and things like that. Long story short, I ended up acquiring those other companies. They had to trust us first.
Sure.
They had to respect us. They saw our operations. As we were building our platform, I would invite them on purpose to see our platform, because they were saying, they were older, for the most part, older than I was. And they're going, I'm not going to put that type of investment back into the organization, right? Because your mentality at 60 is different than mine was at 30.
Right.
So that really helped me kind of leverage into the relationships, and the mentality of saying, you can't stay where you're at, Jim. You've got to really double down. Otherwise, we're gonna destroy your value, the value you have today. So that was the basis of it. So it was a modeling, and in my mind, what I at the time was trying to get to a level of critical mass. So the critical mass allows you to save money for the manufacturers. You have to be better and bigger than them, and the biggest customers, the Walmarts of the world, and better fill rates and better service to Dr. Jones. So the company's really a platform for 26,000 eye doctors. And it's the opposite of concentration of, it's almost an insurance company, you know. It's very predictable.
We are really ping-ponging you, because I'm going to force you back on your timeline a little bit here. You mentioned somebody who took a shot on you. You mentioned a mentor along the way. Tell us a little bit about maybe somebody who was kind of crucial to your trajectory and what you learned from them.
So there's been quite a bit. So what I also learned is the individuals that got you to 10 million aren't the ones that could get you to 100 million, 100 million to 500 million, or 1.6 billion. I know you use 1 billion, but 600 million.
For the record.
What's the extra
round up. Forget rounding down. But it's probably the most difficult thing I've had to do is upgrade as the organization grows. And I had a lot of learning through that process, but it's the only way I could survive in reality.
Tell us about that, yeah.
Yeah, so this falls under you don't know what you don't know. I mean, I could talk about when we hired Brad Weinbrum, who came from the office supply business, and office supply is now run by 2 distributors, and his family business lived through that. And that's very important that he actually lived through the transition, because I had brought people in from the large manufacturers that ran big organizations, and I thought, but since they didn't have the feel from going from 100 million to 500 million, they went into Procter & Gamble and at multi-billion dollars. That environment's different.
Yeah.
The know-how is different. The executions are different. You have to roll up your sleeves more. You have to be a little bit broader, less deep, I would say. They're more narrow, deeper, in expertise, because the chips are higher, right?
Yeah.
Our decision isn't a multi-billion-dollar decision.
Yes.
It might be we're launching a new product or something. So what I learned was getting individuals that had gone through the evolution that I knew I was going to have to do, which really helped. So when we brought Brad Weinbrum in, and he was the opposite of me, which the second lesson is the tendency is to hire people you like and they're like you. You want to hire the opposite.
Yeah.
So back to your own personal kind of background, I had to realize I'm not good at all of this, which was all the operation stuff. Now, if you'd have asked me when I was 28, I'm a great operator, but I wasn't as good as these other things. So I hired to that, and he took over the whole operation of the organization, and I did all the strategic, which I preferred because it's there's so much ambiguity of strategy that no one knew what I was doing at any time. So it's much more free in dealing, as opposed to dealing with thousands of employees and everything. So I preferred that much more. But the point there is that was transformational. And then we systematically started with, I thought I knew what a CFO was. And, again, we brought in an individual by the name of Paul Sherman, who had worked at Burger King and L&R, and that was transformational. I didn't realize that a CFO, for instance, would bring his own credibility, his own experience, his own working relationships with investors and banks, and it was just transformational, right? It was, he created tremendous value the second he stepped in. It was, but I didn't know that until he was sitting in front of me.
Yes.
And he was making me meet people that I'm going, why are we meeting with all these people? Well, when you come around, when we have a process, all these people are bidding for our business and we pay less interest, and but all these beautiful things. And it was the same in almost every discipline except for the sales that I had very clear vision on, because I grew up through that. And I grew up with SEBA that was investing, and SEBA was telling me, hey, we invested $26,000 in your sales training and sales management to be a manager in one day in this company. And they're telling you, we invested $26,000. Not, it wasn't arbitrary. It was very intentional. And I knew that space very well, which served me extremely well, because as I was making all these mistakes in finance and manufacturing and distribution and IT, our sales were going like this. And, the saying is that forgives a lot of sins. And it really does.
True
really
enough.
does. I mean, the businesses I deal with, they're revenue issues, more than back office issues.
Right.
So,
I want to talk about pivoting a little bit now to, I know family is very important to you, you and your brother, supporting the business and growing that business, early lessons, being, close there, community, very much in the Alvarez family, and then philanthropy. And kind of that's your modum operandi now, is looking at opportunities in philanthropy. I know your work in entrepreneurship, helping support the University of Miami. Kind of talk about, because ABB also was involved in a lot of philanthropic efforts through many courses of the years. So that was always important to you and the family, to help support others in the space and what have you. Kind of talk about that, how important community and philanthropy is to you today and the Alvarez family.
Yeah. So the basis for the philanthropy and even, what I'm passionate about probably comes from all the people that helped my family, this country, all the things that broke our way that I don't think it exists much outside of this country, which is, I just felt super grateful, and my family's super grateful for all the opportunities we had. But even in the vision space, there's a tremendous amount of help globally you can do. We take our vision for granted, and the organization started with let's help people to see, which is a huge thing globally, and we'd support work around India, cataract surgery, and just people with glasses, and there was in Africa a village where they had these people that couldn't function because they were blind, and these team of doctors went in, and 3/4 of them walked out seeing, between surgery and all different types of things that we take for granted, and that got me hooked. We still support all this work throughout the world, and it's needed. And the companies we represented, Bausch & Lombs and Johnson & Johnson and Alcon now, the company that SIBA converted into, has a tremendous amount of investments, and that influenced me tremendously. Then we got to a position where I was able to give back, and I went through a whole process of purpose. And I thought I was raised Catholic, and I thought how to give back is to work in a soup kitchen, and I did that with a friend of mine who's washing dishes, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not. No leverage here, I'm making the big thing of guacamole. This guy dropped off a couple baskets of avocados, and the nun in charge threw them at me and said, "You know how to make guacamole?" I said, "She goes, peel all those things and start mashing them up." And I made a bowl the size of this table, I think. But I'm still thinking this isn't. Right. I can have much more impact. And I had to get around that mentality of I didn't have to suffer in order to give back. And I've come full circle to saying what I really enjoy doing is infusing positiveness to entrepreneurs that can change the world. And if I can help, in what's remaining in my life, 20, 30, 40 individuals that impact couple million people, that's where I landed, and it's very important to me. But the best part, I love it. Yeah, it's not a struggle for me. I enjoy doing this. I don't know why, but you guys are fine. Thanks. Yeah, but I think I feel this allows me to step back, to tell you the truth, and smell the roses a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. We're all busy, and what I try to bring to these groups and entities and individuals is really focusing on just helping the focus. I see today the leadership of a lot of these organizations, they're not spending enough time, really getting a clear vision of what they're trying to accomplish. And they're not intentional enough because they're trying to do too many things, and that's what I'm trying to bring to these. And I'll do that if I'm working with an organization. I'll do the research and get some insight that helps the CEOs be successful and let them change the world. So
love that.
Yeah, I kind of landed there, which is I never expected to. For some reason I was figuring my life was going to be in India and Africa and South America, helping doing eye surgeries.
Sure.
And sweating it out, hopefully not getting malaria or something. But no, so this is, I've really been enjoying it. The University of Miami, it's the story, my brother and I went there as a benefit because my mother worked there. And so as a benefit for the children of the employees of the university, we went there for free, which helped tremendously. And I thought I would, since the university has been so good to myself and my family, my sister put her her husband through the university on the same program. That's where my mother learned it. So we've had several cousins go to school there, and it's a big part of my family's education. And education is what kind of my family was very big on. Even though we didn't have a dime, we were always going to, good schools. And, my parents struggled to pay for the tuitions of these different schools that we went to, but it was critical. So the fact that we were able to do this at the University of Miami and they go through there, we felt strongly that we wanted to give back.
I'm just going to make the observation that, as you came to this juncture in your career and trying to figure out how to give back, it resulted in another search, didn't it?
Yes, 100%. You're always searching. I'm still searching.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, you'll find me on AI doing all that.
right. No, I think that's fantastic, and it feels like something that was a common thread. I mean, I think you searched for the right people that were going to take you to the next level. There's kind of this constant search in you that got you to where you are, and
curiosity is really important. It's really important. I'm now doing a lot of things with AI, which is like but personal things, right? I put in my blood results for another and I work on this. It's called personal roadmap, and I put the ideas of what I want to do, the things that I want to accomplish under my own health, my philanthropy, my family, and the ideas and things are
it's building out a plan for you.
Yeah. I did one. I'm just never happy. I'm always learning. So I like to learn this way. I've learned a lot from you guys this morning, and I enjoy it. This is the way I enjoy learning, and I am curious and always learning. I don't, and this allows me to do this.
Yeah.
There's nothing like these type of centers based at universities. The energy is really incredible.
Yeah.
And people are all willing. It's all new. Everybody's eager. I like the environment a lot.
Yeah. Great.
Well, that's a great takeaway too, to be continuously a life learner and the curiosity. With the minute or two we have left, I wanted to ask you, because you've been a very much an early steward of the understanding the Florida story in its early days as a sleepy tourist town. You mentioned, looking at South Beach and early on, and the opportunity even to buy some homes that today would be, $10 to $50 million and so forth. So you've seen this growth, incredible, especially in the last decade.
Absolutely.
Where this economic boom, you mentioned AI now. How do you think Florida plays into this continued growth story? You're investing with your philanthropy at the University of Miami, helping students build their next businesses. Hopefully they grow those businesses here locally, and I'm sure you're helping to encourage that. How do you think this is going to play out as you put your not to play on words, your vision is looking at the Florida market? Where do you think our migration is going to continue to grow?
So I think as a business owner, we always struggled with getting a lot of, or the amount of IT individuals, professionals that we needed in Florida. And there was, we were battling with Silicon Valley and New York and other bigger markets. And South Florida has always been a bit of a desert. And I'm on the board at the School of Engineering at the University of Miami. And, one of the things we're working on is try to keep those engineers from leaving, because they get poached, right out of them. They graduate and they're gone. To try to create the environment where they stay here. And I think AI for South Florida and Florida in particular is a tremendous opportunity, because it's a refresh. So the U-Star program where the entrepreneurs are presenting, the last 20 were all AI, the students coming from the students. So I think now it's about being very intentional about getting the universities, working with the government, the state government, to really create an environment, because I think we have an opportunity, unlike, we were so far behind in traditional technology. I don't know what I don't even know what to label it prior AI, whatever it was, traditional computing. We were so far behind that we have an opportunity now, if we get our ducks in a row and get everybody working together and have a clear vision for the state and South Florida and the universities working together to make a difference. Because this is a new beginning. It's 2 years old, right? So it's older than that, but it really got it. AI started getting traction a couple of years ago. So why not us? Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a matter, and the talent's here, corporations are here, universities are definitely here. So we can do it. It'll be up to us, and I know the work you guys are doing, I want to congratulate you for doing the same. It's a matter of just being conscious and being very clear that, hey, we want to be an AI leader, and retain the talent. It's really about us retaining the talent at this point. There's plenty of talent.
Right.
That's right. No reason to leave.
Yeah. Well, now everybody, there's other now reasons. Now it's we're in this loop where everybody wants to live here now.
Yeah.
And that's going to help, obviously, but bringing in the Ken Griffiths of the world and everything else into that vision for sure.
Yeah.
So
Angel, entrepreneurs that are listening today, startups, founders, how do they get a hold of you, ABB Optical, or maybe even some of the work that you're doing with the U-Star program in Miami? Can you share that with us?
Sure. You can I'm on LinkedIn. And I wish I could tell you I check LinkedIn all that often, but you can definitely drop me a message on LinkedIn. The U-Star program is at the University of Miami. You can pull that up and also go on the website and message.
Very good. And thank you so much for your work in the community, the philanthropy that you're doing here, the support of mentorship and entrepreneurship. Goes a significant way. So Angel Alvarez, founder, ABB Optical, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Remember to subscribe, like, and share the Center Live podcast and follow us on all social media. If you're interested in sponsoring or appearing on the podcast, please email Levan Center Live. Our email is innovation@nova.edu.